The creation of the Volksempfänger by the Nazi Party marked a new frontier during World War II, as it was used as a means to indoctrinate the German population into conforming to anti-Semitic views, emphasized by the totalitarian government. Hitler's regime accomplished this through intensified German propaganda, increased racial prejudice, and media censorship and exploitation for their political gain.
The rapid increase of anti-Semitism in Germany led to a rise in propaganda against Jews. Adolf Hitler capitalized on the popular myth that the Jews had betrayed Germany during World War I and exercised totalitarianism when a government system becomes centralized and dictatorial to control the German people. Word was going around that Jewish military members were war shirking, meaning they were avoiding military responsibilities on the front lines. Hitler used this myth to promote German nationalism and spread the idea that anyone not of pure German descent was to be purged. There was great success in the spread of xenophobia toward Jewish people due to the severity of hardships in Germany at the time. Germany had just been issued the Guilt Clause in the Treaty of Versailles, which stated that Germany and other Central Powers were at fault for the entire war and were to pay for all reparations. This drove Germany into massive debt and apparent inflation. The people suffered from a broken economy and needed somebody to pin the blame on. Rather than condemning German leaders, Hitler placed the blame on the Jewish people, who in turn became public enemy number one. Hitler's goal was to create a brand new Germany, full of uniformed citizens. This meant everyone had to be of the same nation, language, appearance, and most importantly, be of the same mindset.
One of the ways that the Nazis brainwashed the population was by targeting kids. These were school books. These were textbooks this was published in 1936, so they were things that ordinary German kids were reading. The thing about mushrooms, if they're wild, is that they spread. The Nazis were saying is that Jews are dangerous, they're going to spread and quote-unquote infect our whole country.
Psychological manipulation was the most abused tool of Hitler and Joseph Goebbels. Goebbels was the head of the Ministry of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda in Nazi Germany. He snuck anti-Jewish messages into music, films, news reports, literature, and anything else possible. In the beginning of Goebbels' efforts in 1928, the Nazi Party had very little power, with only 12 seats in German parliament out of 647 seats. After his rush of propaganda, by 1930, the Nazis held 106 seats.
Slowly, they began institutionalizing discrimination. And by that, I mean that discrimination became embedded in German law, and in German organizations and in German structures.
He had hundreds, if not thousands, of people working to do nothing but spread his propaganda.
This led to the monopolization of the radio in a way that was used to the advantage of the Nazi Party. In Goebbels' words, it paved the way for the Nazi Party's victory in the War of Propaganda and the March 1933 elections.
Radio was the first technology that you could have thousands, albeit millions of people experiencing something at the same time. Before, with printed materials, obviously they could hear about something, but you might read it today and you get the same information, but you're not experiencing it at the same time.
Previously, the radio was a luxury that only prestigious people had access to, typically costing 200 Reichsmark or $48. Its purpose was simply to air music and broadcast news. Goebbels saw the power and impact that it was capable of, so he seized this opportunity and commissioned an engineer named Otto Griesing to invent a cheaper radio that was easy to mass produce.
Die Stärke eines guten Rundfunkprogramms liegt in der richtigen Dosierung zwischen Unterhaltung, Freude, Belehrung, Erziehung und Politik.
People were able to buy it who might not have been able to buy a different radio. So it was designed to be easily attainable.
Hitler subsidized the price of normal radio so that it was easily accessible, and even workers in poverty could obtain one. After 1929, the radio became much more politicized than ever before. This new and improved version was inexpensive to produce, at 76 Reichsmark or $18. It was used not only for broadcasting and music, but for spreading Nazi propaganda as well. They called it the VE 301, VE standing for Volksempfänger and 301 representing January 30th, the day Hitler came to power. The Volksempfänger, also known as the People's Receiver, had its debut at the 10th International Radio Show in Berlin, and within the first 2 days of its introduction to Germany, 100,000 of them were purchased. It was rapidly spread across Germany, with a total of 2.6 million units bought from 1933 to 1937. By 1934, the Volksempfänger itself accounted for 75% of all sales in Germany, yet the VE 301 was sold for less than it cost to make. The Nazi Party wasn't hungry for money. They were hungry for power.
Als Traumbild vorschwebte, ist Wirklichkeit geworden.
Hitler had over 68 radio stations in Germany alone that essentially played his messages all the time.
By the end of the 1920s and the start of the 1930s, radio networks promptly broadened across Germany. Transmitter signals reached 31% of the German population in 1927, but by 1934, transmitters extended to 70% of the population. It went from zero radio listenership in 1924 to almost 5 million listeners by the end of 1933. Germany was divided into 9 broadcasting districts. In order for the signal to be accessed by great amounts of people, transmitters were constructed in the major cities of each district. Goebbels took authority over the Reich Broadcasting Corporation, which controlled each regional broadcasting company. During speeches, Hitler's narration was compelling to the ears of the Germans listening to him in person and carried through to listeners of the Volksempfänger. He planted a universal idea of new beginnings and made his audience feel exhilarated. The Volksempfänger also made it extremely efficient for Hitler's ideas to resonate with the people, as one no longer had to leave their home to hear him speak. The Volksempfänger played continuously in almost every German household. However, Goebbels knew that if the Nazi agenda was the only thing being broadcasted, it would bore people rather quickly. So segments of propaganda were intertwined with casual entertainment, such as local news, music, and sports broadcasts. This was especially useful to Goebbels and Hitler as the 1936 Olympics were taking place in Berlin. People were now more eager than ever to tune into their Volksempfänger and hear updates on the games. Nationalism in Germany was at its all-time high, but not only due to German athletic pride. Hitler brainwashed Germans with the mindset that they were the superior race, that their race was meant to rule all. With the purchase of the Volksempfänger, customers would also receive a tag stating that it was illegal to tune into foreign broadcasts.
If you translate the German, it essentially says that if you use this radio or modify this radio to listen to anything but the German stations, you could go to jail or actually even face death.
To ensure no one listened far out of range, instead of numbers on the dial, there were the names of German cities.
So it would be very, very difficult, if not impossible, to listen to anything but Hitler's radio stations.
This shows a number of steps that Goebbels took within the Ministry of Propaganda in order to impose Nazi control over German media, which proves that the Volksempfänger allowed for a new frontier in political parties, as none preceding the Nazis had been so massive and influential.
It was just a radio, but in the way that they designed it, in the way that they promoted it, and in the way that they used it, it became this thing that's greater than itself.
The Volksempfänger not only affected the people of Germany, but opposing countries during World War II. In response, the U.S. created a government broadcasting station, the Voice of America, to combat the German propaganda that was spread not long after Germany incited war on the U.S. President Roosevelt wanted a way for America's perspective to be distributed to the Germans as well as the rest of the world. The VOA started broadcasting in Germany in 1942. It was honest media that reported news regarding the state. It held its significance and now has over 50 million listeners a week. In modern day, government censorship remains prevalent, as countries still prohibit different aspects of media, ensuring that they are the sole voice of information to the people. Because of this, it is almost inevitable that the people conform to the ideals that are believed to be a universal truth. In Ethiopia, persistent state-controlled media prevents widespread access to information, meaning less media transparency. In Turkey, an amendment to internet law allowed their government to close any website or ban any content, along with its blocking of Twitter and other social media. Similar to the actions of the Nazis, Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has jailed many journalists, along with greatly fining media groups in retaliation to their coverage. The Volksempfänger is a frontier in media, as it was utilized to influence millions by the widespread power of its words, and can be recognized as a warning to humanity to be mindful of the seizure of media by powerful leaders.